All right, here we go again. So, in this, the next thing I'm going to post that is not peaceful. It is not peaceful to block the traveled way of a road. Also, they cannot unbutton. Yeah, that's not a technical word. Cannot exit the vehicle as the threat is too great. And nobody knows who's waiting or anything like that. You can have 5 people on the road and 100 behind a building. As the unknown threat is too great. Right. And this isn't ice driving down the street casually and somebody, gets hit or something like that. Although something weird, that was a weird one I read last night. So we have to mind law enforcement also, and I'll get into that in a second. Over here cooking a little bit here. Well, apparently there was some vehicle chase with a bunch of officers, and the one vehicle hit an innocent bystander vehicle, and the individual they were chasing got out and ran. They didn't go after him, and they didn't help the innocent bystander vehicle. It was a mother and a daughter, and they did pass on. I mean, they left them there. They didn't even call emergency services and say, hey, there's something going on here. I mean, the question is, why did they feel like they did something wrong? I guess they didn't call in the chase. You're supposed to call the chase into the, to their dispatch, and they didn't. That's what it said. And all right. There's something. This one. That's all I don't think something like that. We're getting way on board in there.
Put a fucking gun out on us. Fucking bitches. These bitches run.
Moments, if they go back, have to go back to school and all that type of thing. Yes, some of these things have a way of taking care of themselves on Monday. You'll still might have some people, but you continue the operations. That's obvious, right? again, I don't agree with the administration's, total operation. But there's a limit on what people should or could do. Again, New York didn't look too bad. They were pretty much minding their manners. Sorry. All right, yeah, the flash mob. See, I was telling you to prepare for this since before the election, right? And I think I brought it up before, like years ago. Maybe even the last election, 2020, I don't know. Flash mobs become a threat, especially if they get the numbers and the concentration where you can't move where you want to move. Emergency services, response teams. That's why the helicopters need to come in. I'll be back in a second here. I was just looking at, okay, here. This is Compton, California, June 7th. So, again, this is what I've been telling you to prepare for. But the idea is they would deport us if the shoe was on the other foot, because I've lived in Latino centric communities. All right. All right. Satan is definitely up today. All right. When I said Elon got paid by Trump's system, it wasn't. It's not quid quo pro. It's just how the world works, right? So he was in. They got him elected. They got Trump reelected, and he got the benefit. Right? It happens everywhere. Seeing what's going on here. Well, it's just there's ways to do things, ways not to do things. It's everything. Well, obviously LA is infused with criminals of a foreign designation. So again, there's no way around doing what they're doing. Right. Part of what happened is that the Biden administration let too many people in. Correct. And it really it's so here's an example. So you see an everyday person being deported. Why is the administration doing that? Biden let too many people in. You say, well, once your court stuff, this amnesty court stuff takes 3 years to get to or 4 years, it's out of control. Well, they defeated the system. We can't. It's just like what happens when a tree when its roots are are not deep enough, or it's not, the roots are overcome by some disease, and bends and breaks, fall down. And that's what was happening. Oh, well, again, I believe in doing it in a different way, but that's fine. I mean, there is reasoning that could be articulated. Okay, so we got a councilwoman supposedly saying to escalate.
They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics. Because community defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger. They know how quickly we mobilize. Defense works and our resistance has slowed them down before. And if they're escalating their tactics, then so are we. When they show up, we gotta show up even stronger. They know how quickly we mobilize. That's why they're changing tactics.
Again, to walk away and not deport is again to lose the battle. So, well, they won't want deportation of anybody. At that point, maybe they're even doing that now. I don't know. No. I have another fire 12 hours ago, though. Well, so what you might want to do is see what kind of aviation firefighting assets you can use. Is there anything, the helicopter hovering? Can you pinpoint it? A little, not that mass drop, but a smaller drop, or maybe a hose. Right. With a directed, and then you direct the spray. Thank you, Larry. Time is it? I got to be ready to look at church. All right. Well, I wouldn't make it necessarily a political battle right now. As far as Kim Bass opposing, she opposed immigration operations or deportation operations, and now she opposes the violence. So, well, you have an ally there for this part of it. No reason to kind of just put the political thing there. In fact, might benefit a little. Find Democrats that you think an over immigration occurred.
a lot of racism and stuff going on in the background, so try not to be part of it. Thank you, Larry. All right, so again, they're recruiting. You have to look at that. Right. It's the result of Biden letting in 700,000 military-age male migrants in from the U.S. Much more. I don't know if that's an accurate number, but that's right. Well, you require a certain type of life from the people that come here, even if they're looking for amnesty. Right. So you require employment and other things, except, if somebody's disabled, that's understood. We're not going to go up to an Australian immigration system, but right. Just kind of like freaking out. You have to make sure nobody's whooping them up. You have to look for agitators, foreign, domestic. Mexican government should make a statement similar to Karen Bass. Or Valentina Gomez.
I am a legal immigrant and I want every illegal deported. If you want to come to America, do it legally. File your paperwork. Don't just hop the border. And if you're one of those people waving the Mexican flag or any other flag that is not the American flag, then you should go back to where you came from. America is a nation of laws, not lawlessness. Simple as that. I am a legal immigrant.
So we're seeing something similar
Okay, so again, I don't know what LAPD is doing, speaking about peaceful protests, but it could be a law enforcement tactic, good cop, bad cop. Right. Well, again, the Biden administration haphazardly allowed people to immigrate. So it's a mess. You know, the administration early on realized that simply deporting criminals is not going to give them the numbers they're looking for whatever reason. Right. All right, here's the.
You need to watch the TV and see what's going on. It's out of control. I mean, they're there to restore order. Anyone who looks at the scene on your TV, look at that. It's out of control. What normal person, what member of the public feels comfortable being in downtown LA right now? Nobody. So I don't know what he's talking about. He needs to watch the TV and see what's going on. It's out of control. And since he can't control the state, he can't control the lawlessness, we'll do it for him. And that's what the president's doing. He's deploying the National Guard. We will have order.
Trying to put it on my television.
Well, to continue on that topic then, because I want to bring in the fact that the mayor said something regarding that as well, and I'm going to use her words directly, where she says, quote, "These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city." And there is an argument about, you know, executing lawful search warrants and et cetera, but then when it escalates into something like this, there are naturally a lot of people that are afraid. I wonder if you see at all any potential argument for the fact that perhaps it's almost overblowing to a degree and getting to a degree where sort of everybody has lost the handle on the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah, turn up my phone.
Well, we are in control of our operations. We have not canceled any of our operations. We have been successful in both our missions yesterday and today. So everything's going as planned on our front. What's out of control is the response by the agitators. And I will tell you, they appear to be highly coordinated and sophisticated. We saw union activists and organizers be involved in these efforts to resist our operations. So there's something going on here where you have this sophisticated resistance that's being mounted against the federal government. And we're looking into that. And we're going to look at who the leaders of those operations are. But look, we didn't cause this. I mean, this reaction is not normal. We are enforcing the law as written. We're not doing anything crazy or draconian. We're going to a judge. We're getting search warrants. We're getting arrest warrants. We're going to immigration court. We're enforcing immigration law. If they don't like it, they should talk to Congress. Congress writes the laws.
All right, yeah, so he's saying that they're just enforcing the law. And actually, I noticed that they did have a large number of search warrants and other things that they were using to gain entry. They weren't just willy-nilly doing it, you know, as happens. It's legal, actually, if you just, the immigration has administrative warrants and things like that, or administrative warrant powers and stuff. They're not warrant, but arrest powers. Well, if I'm not mistaken, they can arrest, detain an immigrant, and then take them to court. They don't have to do it the other way around. X.com is tracking you. X.com is tracking you now. A total of 11,000 or 1,150 are collecting information about your online activities. This may include your financial and medical data. There's a risk this data is being sold to third parties. Right. And then that's the way you investigate it. And you see what the third parties try to do. If they try to extort you, then you get on that. Right. Thanks, sir. So again, they've they've gone out of their way to do things legally and by the book and even beyond the book. Right. So they did adjust for the community that, the more liberal community that's in California. I noticed that they're presenting search warrants and things like that. And I don't know if that's across the board, but they're definitely doing it there. Oh yeah, the idea is if it'll be a full riot if or uprising, what are they going to call it, on Monday if they don't go back to school and work. A lot of this stuff starts on Friday and ends on Monday. Sorry. No, there's no way I get to church today. It was a mess. I haven't gone outside even yet. Feeling a little bit better, but it's going to be a little while before I feel okay. Probably in about an hour or two. Deep State probably had some sort of trap set up, right? Sorry. Well, the question is, how many people do we need for work? I don't know if they started calculating that. Was this today in New York or yesterday? Let me see here. Anything in New York? $20 ago. Looks like it's quiet down in New York. So I'm surprised I'm trying to find a live feed. I haven't seen one. I guess you got the right here. What kind of glass? I guess that's better glass. Right. I think Errol Flynn, or not Errol, what's his name? I said Errol Flynn? Oh, not Errol Flynn, Errol Musk. I think he's the whale face there. I mean, a lot more going on there than what he says. But again, he's in Russia. You know, Russians are meeting and greeting. Right. Sorry. So again, their signs say legalization, no deportation, and that's not an option, you know. Right. Where that councilwoman was speaking. Again, here's a flash mob on a road. Gotta see if that continues today. And I don't know, the raids may not be actually moving today, so it might be less of that. But I don't know if they are or aren't, but usually they don't move on Sunday. To a certain degree, the way Elon was doing it, he was burning down the house. Again, the same thing, you know, Miller does it also. You have to be careful. You have to just, you know, the MAGA faithful are with you. And again, you know, some complain, you know, and Marjorie complained, but, right. And Loomer. Well, you can't fire capable people all the time because then there's nobody left. Larry. They got this looting. That costs money for the community. That causes stores to pull out, even go bankrupt. No, there's nothing. I don't know. This guy shouldn't be fired. I mean, it's his opinion. Everybody has opinions. Terry Moran should have been fine. It shouldn't be an issue, right? Stephen Miller is kind of jerkish. I mean, he comes along so cocky, and you know, a lot of stuff he says is bullshit. Right. But I think they may have had a policy on not doing that, and you know, it's kind of weird because now everybody's jumping on board, going this, that, and the other thing. What's this? This is Homeland Security's statement with Barbie Noem. Yeah, the rock thing is kind of messed up. And there's the prophet in Kirtland, Ohio. Forgiveness is a divine requirement that helps us build Zion. The Lord asks us to forgive. That's weird because I talk about Zion. All right. Zion is built on the foundation of small things, verse 33. Yeah. Put that up there. Yeah, I definitely should have at least looked at the LDS. That's strange. They probably knew and blocked you from it. Or blocked me from it. Something's with me here. I got a confirmation in the video that they are. I think we just get too, everything's too sensitive. All right. Well, Stephen Miller, he comes off that way anyway. I mean, it's not like it's not known. Yeah, what's his name? Mark Wayne Mullins, like messing up there. Okay, while you're attacking law enforcement. So again, carrying a flag is not illegal. So this Bash woman says. So again, he messed it up. They were literally out there protesting, carrying a foreign flag. That is absolutely insane. They are not just peaceful protesters; they are illegals. And I'm like, well, And she says, carrying a Bash's flag is not illegal. He says, a foreign flag, that's a foreign flag while you're attacking law enforcement. It's pretty bad. Well, that's the point. They're attacking law enforcement. That's where he should have went. Right. You can't say it's freedom of speech to shoot someone, right? So again, that's kind of an outrageous example, but that's what is, right. So that's what happens if you focus too much on the flag without articulating the first part, right? Then it kind of looks just like simple racism, right? Or something like that. I mean, I'm not even big on the term illegal. I mean, you don't have to say that. Everybody knows it's used vindictively and in the wrong manner. They're undocumented and they shouldn't be here. Right? If they can't, no, first off, if they can't fit the requirement to not offend or, again, be offenders from another country, I mean, people don't let offenders in from other countries. I mean, it's the point now, like it's like they're saying, well, the United States is looking at people's phones and devices, and they've been doing that for years. Everybody does it. Go online, look up the border people across the globe. Canada even does it. Canada is probably worse than we are. It might actually be harder to get into Canada than the United States. I'm not too sure. Australia, they all do it.
Their hard work are horrible people, and they are safer because these ICE operations are ongoing. Unfortunately, we've seen some violent protests happen, and that's why these National Guard soldiers are being utilized to help with some security in some areas. That is what I...
Yeah, a guy in Colombia was shot in the head. He might be done. All right. Not sure. Yeah, I was trying to find a live. It says live, but it's not like, wait. It says watch live. Maybe that's it.
When the Biden administration used legal means to deal with migrants.
Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles after clashes over raids on undocumented migrants.
My OBS won't.
Well, these are some of the latest pictures we've had in from LA of the California National Guard, showing the military vehicles there, heavy armed personnel parked up outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. This is in downtown LA. Well, the governor of California has heavily criticized President Trump's decision to deploy National Guard troops to the city after a second night of protests against deportations.
Window capture.
Gavin Newsom said the city has no shortage of law enforcement officers. Mr. Trump praised the National Guard for doing a great job before they had arrived. Let's speak to our correspondent in Washington, Jake Bond. So, Jake, we have now seen those pictures. They have arrived.
Yes, the latest is that the National Guard troops have begun arriving in Los Angeles. And earlier, Mr. Trump has ordered 2,000 National Guard troops to go to LA to quell what he sees as riot, what he sees as unrest. And from Friday, we saw clashes between the protesters and this federal immigration enforcement agents as they stepped up the enforcement. And we saw them making over 100 arrests of what they suspect are illegal immigrants. And, you know, when the protesters began gathering and blocking their path, they responded by firing flashbangs as well as pepper spray and rubber bullets and pepper guns at the protesters.
I have it somewhere,
and we also saw protesters setting fire to vehicles and throwing bottles of what the authorities have claimed are Molotov cocktails at the federal agents. Now, what we're seeing is the California governor who is claiming that this troop deployment to LA is completely unnecessary. He's saying that the troops will only escalate tension, and he really accused the White House of only doing it as a part of a spectacle, that they actually want to escalate the tension. Now, the President Donald Trump and the White House have claimed that there is lawlessness and criminal behavior in LA, and now the situation is out of control, so that the troops are necessary to go there and quell this riot. And this is a president whose rallying call is law and order, and this is going to play. This is exactly what his support base would like to see him do.
Yeah, just remind us the origins of this, because as you mentioned, the principle behind what's going on is something that President Trump campaigned heavily on before.
I'm supposed to go to church, but if you look at the
yes, President Trump has pledged that he will take care of this national emergency. He claimed that there's a national emergency at the southern border, that there are illegal immigrants who are flooding into America, and they're bringing crime, and they're bringing in drugs, and all kinds of awful things. Now, there is this movement by the president, there is this pledge by the president to kick out at least 1 million immigrants during his time each year. Now, according to government data, the White House has nothing close to this number. And this is why the critics of the president is accusing him of making these arrests, stepping up this number to hit this arbitrary quota.
Obviously, immigrants were used
what we also, I mean, it does track with Mr. Trump's recent policies of stepping up the self-deportation scheme, as well as stepping up this more forced deportation, arrest, and detainment of who they suspect as illegal immigrants. And, you know, what we see also is more protests that are planned today. So I think we can expect more clashes to happen on Sunday. And it seems like this clash and this conflict between the federal government and the local officials is far from over.
National Guard troops have arrived in Los Angeles after Donald Trump ordered their deployment to tackle a second night of street protests against raids targeting undocumented migrants. But the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, has heavily criticized the decision, saying the move is purposefully inflammatory and could raise tensions. Reagan Morris has the very latest from Los Angeles.
Violent clashes in LA for a second night. Angry at immigration raids in Los Angeles, protesters took to the streets.
Again, it's like Moses. I did that before, where Moses holds up his hands.
Local law enforcement used tear gas and rubber bullets. Protesters threw rocks and fireworks.
They went straight for my girlfriend. They ripped out of my arms. They took her. They threw me. They threw me her phone. And I was like, where are you guys taking her? She's born here.
Earlier in the day, one group of protesters tried to stop a bus carrying those taken by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE.
Well, ICE has
but the
arrest
protests
authority
were small
for
and
people that
isolated,
interfere with what
and
they're
LA
doing.
and
You guys
California
complaining,
officials
like,
say
why
they
did
don't
take her?
need or want the National Guard here. California Governor Gavin Newsom says they will only inflame tensions. President Trump says California's Democratic leadership is incompetent and he needs to restore order. This is the first time in 60 years that a U.S. president has deployed the National Guard without a request from a governor.
Stuff to me, part
In
of it is they're
1965,
blocking this
President
stuff
Lyndon
too.
B. Johnson sent
There
the
is no
Guard to
one.
Alabama.
It's a scam.
But that
They're
wasn't
all
to
scammers.
quell protests. It was to
Cartels are
protect
probably
Martin
paying
Luther
them.
King and others marching for civil rights. California
You gotta look at
is
the
the world's
PIs, make
fourth
sure they're not
largest
working for the
economy
cartels.
and relies
I
on a
brought that
large
up years
immigrant
ago.
workforce, legal and illegal.
Brought that up for like
The
15,
state's
20
leaders
years.
say people without documents who go to work
Private
and
eyes,
pay their
dirty
taxes
cops.
should be
They'll
left
tell you
alone.
it's something else. They'll tell you they're working for
But
Trump.
President
that
Trump
kind of
says
thing.
these troops are here
But
to
they'll make
protect
scenarios where
citizens
they,
from
you
the
know,
radical
looks,
left.
could look like that.
For now, the streets are quiet, but more protests are expected outside City Hall as more National Guard troops arrive.
Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard to Los Angeles after clashes over raids on undocumented migrants. Let's run you through some of the latest pictures from LA. The California National Guard showing military vehicles there and heavily armed personnel parked outside the Metropolitan Detention Center in downtown LA. Let's cross now to LA. We can speak to our reporter, Reagan Morris. Just talk us through what's happening there.
Well, the first National Guard troops started arriving a few hours ago in the early morning hours, and it's still darkness. And this jail has been the site of violent clashes over the last few nights. You can still sort of taste the tear gas in the air. It sticks to the trees and whatnot, so we've kind of moved away from that area. But for now, you know, the streets of LA are relatively quiet. I've spoken to a few of the National Guard troops here. They don't know exactly where they're going to be deployed or what they're exactly doing here. The state, the governor, and local officials have said they don't really want them here. They don't need them here. So we'll see what kind